This is eCoffee with Experts, where marketers and founders share what's actually working in SEO, AI, and digital growth. Grab your coffee and fuel your mind as we chat with top minds about their wins, struggles, and lessons you won't find in a blog post. Brought to you by Digital Web Solutions, we bring real talk to help you grow your business, one episode at a time. Let's get started.
Hey, hello everyone. Welcome to your show, eCoffee with Experts. This is your host, Ranmay here. And today we have Jesse Ringer, who is the founder of Method and Metric with us. Hey, Jesse, how's it going?
It's going really well. Thanks for having me.
Lovely. Jesse, before we move any forward, why don't you talk us through your journey a bit, how it all started, you landing up in the SEO, digital marketing space? I would assume we are from a generation wherein we cannot say, hey, you know what? I wanted to be in SEO.
Yeah.
So that cannot be the story, right?
No.
So talk us through your journey a bit.
Yeah, I am of an age now that, was before Google existed. And, SEO was never a legitimate career path.
Oh, yeah.
When I was going to school, I really wanted to be in copywriting. I wanted to work at an ad agency. Mad Men was at its peak. And, I loved the idea of working at a fast-paced, exciting agency. But this was shortly after the 2008 financial crisis. And, companies weren't really hiring in the same way they used to. And so I fell into freelance work and consulting work, doing copywriting and creating content for different brands. And I found that with my writing, that if a boss or a client was like, I don't like your writing, or this isn't good, I didn't really have the skills or the capacity to counterpoint and explain my thought process and things like that. And so, I found SEO just by accident in that, it was this place that had analytics tied to the writing. And so if someone was like, I don't like your writing, I could come back with, hey, well, this page generated, this much traffic. It led to this many more sales. And so even though you don't like it, I can see that it's good. And so it gave me the confidence in my early career to really love it. And it turns out that I'm a lot more analytical and data driven than I care to admit. So, finding with SEO, it was like balancing both the creative stuff as well as the analytical piece. And it gave me a lot of confidence to grow from that. And so that was kind of my early start in SEO. And then it kind of grew from consulting work into building out a full-on agency that I've now been running for 8 years.
Absolutely. You spent 6 years as a solo consultant. What was that trigger point wherein you said, heck yeah, I'm going to start my own agency?
I wish there's a few things after the first 4 or 5 years of running my consulting business, I was starting to get a bit restless. I was starting to wonder what the next step is. And an agency seemed like the next career jump. But my negative self-talk was there's so many agencies out there. What would we offer that's different, And that fear of failure definitely crept in more than a few times and talked me out of it. But then I was at a house party with a friend, and we were just chatting about work, and he happened to have a software company at the time. And he mentioned, if you're an agency, we could refer you some work. And that was it. That was the push. The next week I went and got incorporated and then, launched Method and Metric. There's a lot of steps in between those moments.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a real, just someone else validating this idea that I could create an agency was all I needed to get over my own, hurdles and reluctance and go for it.
And Jesse, when you start your own agency, you're wearing multiple caps, right? You are selling, you're doing the books, you're hiring, you're trying to build a team, you're delivering, you're doing project management, quite literally everything, from strategy to execution, implementation, deliverables, everything. So how challenging was it, to kind of go through the initial first few weeks, months, getting the first client, ensuring that the delivery goes out? Talk us through it.
I had some pretty fortunate pieces already in play, going from the really original name of J Ringer Consulting to Method and Metric. We already had clients. So we already had revenue, and we already had, our first group of clients. But the other challenges that I didn't account for was when you're a consultant, you work for yourself. And when you work with other consultants, they work for themselves. And you're both economically tied to each other because you need to do good work in order to keep working. Hiring an employee was a really different experience. It completely shifted from, hey, here's the work, go do the work, to, having to establish, relationship and having, get their ideas in terms of the processes and the work and things like that. And I had to become a boss, which I was not ready for. I didn't know what I didn't know about it. In my mind, it's like, all right, you hire an employee, they want to do their best work, you get out of their way and let them do it. And that's not always the case. And so that was a big hurdle. One client he was with us for quite a number of years between J Ringer Consulting and Method of Metric. He emailed me once and was just like, hey, really excited that you have an agency. This is really great, but we don't know who is doing the work. We don't know how it's happening and when it's happening. And when before it was just me, it was a lot easier to communicate those things on the fly. And it was just evident who was doing the work. And so that was another big learning in that, we have to reshape and reframe how we deliver the work and communicate the work. It's not enough to just, send weekly updates and send them a monthly report. We needed to schedule meetings, explain what we were doing, start building a roadmap and showing them the different touch points along the way. And so those were two key lessons that really stand out to me today. I'm still learning how to run an agency. And it's there's always new things going on. But those two were some of the early lessons of, oh, this is not just me doing consulting work. This is bigger than myself.
Hey, we hope you're enjoying the coffee and the conversation so far. This show is powered by Digital Web Solutions. And if you've ever wondered how the biggest brands actually build authority, this is it. DWS has a massive network of over 250,000 publishers, real sites that help you rank on Google, and more importantly, stay visible in AI search. It's the heavy lifting most teams just can't do on their own. As a thank you for listening, they're offering an exclusive free strategy call just for our eCoffee listeners. It's a great way to map out your authority plan for 2026. Just click the link below to book yours and see how they can help scale your brand. All right, now let's get back to the show.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Starting your own agency and, like you said, there's so many around, you really have to carve out a niche for yourself. And initially when you're starting out, you try to take every client that comes your way because you have to keep the lights on and then kind of slowly carve out a niche. So I can imagine, the madness that a founder has to go through when you're starting out.
Yeah, that's a great point. All of those things, you say yes to work, you're excited, you're oh, of course I could solve this problem for you. It's confidence, it is, trusting your team, but you start to realize that, there's only a smaller group, but depending on the size of your company and agency, there's ones that are better fits than others. I used to get so stressed out and anxious, trying to, fit properly with a specific client where our personalities didn't match, or their expectations didn't align with the work that we were doing, and vice versa. And so lots of those things have definitely come about over the years. I don't think there was a definite moment where those became really clear, but you have to acknowledge that you can't serve everybody, and trying to be everything to everyone creates a lot of stress in yourself. It creates stress in the team. These clients move on and they're left disappointed. And all of that becomes challenging and difficult to manage.
Now, from a leadership standpoint, Jesse, what is the leadership decision you feel you have made, inside your agency that significantly improved client delivery or let's say team productivity?
Yeah. The one that comes to mind, and maybe this isn't the biggest one, but it's definitely leaning on my team, giving them, the direct access to the clients, giving them the responsibility and the ownership of the work. In the early days, I knew the most about SEO. I knew the most about the clients and the work. And so it was mostly I hire employees to do the work in the background and I would deliver it. And not that I was necessarily taking the credit for the work, but the team didn't have the same interactions as I did with each
Oh, yeah.
client. And now it's like, all right, you're doing the work, you're going to communicate the work, and you're going to have that relationship with the clients as we go, because things move a lot quicker. I'm still getting caught up in like being a bottleneck for my team. And it's certainly a thing that you have to like get out of their way so that they can do their work, that they're not like asking you a million questions about how something needs to happen or what was the conversation with that client today. Like those kinds of things, like trust your people and let them do the work that they were hired to do.
And internally, how has the workflow, I mean, what has been those workflow changes that you have implemented to adapt your agency to now so much of it is being around AI, right?
Yeah.
So let's call it an AI assisted search environment.
Yeah, you know, it shifted a great deal, both in terms of the value of the work and the speed in which we're completing work has greatly changed. So one thing that I can share about like our process and flow is that we use Gemini and Google products for everything, and so we've now built out a little AI robot for us that has our entire company history built into it. All of the work we've ever done for clients, fully anonymized, but like all of the keyword research, all of the technical strategy, all of the presentation docs and meeting notes, everything is now in this methodometric index that my team can tap into at any time. So as we're building out strategies, as we're reviewing work or working on new ideas, they can tap into this huge repository of information and be like, what have we done in the past? How can we better optimize these in the future? And so that's been a huge advantage for us because my team hasn't been here since day one. Now, all of that legacy history and knowledge that many of the past team members had, the ones that I have too, are now for everyone to access. So that's been a huge piece. And the other one is like expediting analysis and filling in our blind spots and catching ideas that maybe we didn't think of at first, and being able to tie that in with like the human relationship and the human knowledge, and just building out a much better product that we serve to our clients.
And now, when you analyze AI generated search results today, what types of content or sources are consistently being cited by LLMs? What does your research say?
With content today showing up in the LLMs, like it is really, in my view, a lot of content that is associated with, the relationship and kind of the predictive assessment of the content. So the content is not necessarily like that long form storytelling piece anymore. That part is still important because those are the pieces that the LLMs reference to understand the context and the likelihood of the information, but also having the answer at the top of the page, having that direct response that these LLMs like to see. The other thing that is also quite interesting is that the content they source can be like from any time period. So if you have content from a few years ago, there's a chance that those might be referenced in those LLM answers. And so it may be out of date. Things may have changed. I was recently reading about like for a baby care product that they had a safety audit done for it a number of years ago that has since been out of date, but the LLMs are referencing it and like referencing these warnings for this baby product that had already been resolved. That's one thing that I've kind of noticed about all of this is that the reputation of the sources and the relevance and the timeliness, it's not as refined as Google's algorithm. And so we have to be really mindful of like the information that exists out there about our brands, about us, and making sure that we have as much up-to-date information out there as possible for the LLMs to reference.
And, what is your favorite go-to tool these days? I mean, AI tool, these days, Jesse.
I've been playing with Claude Bot a fair bit. Since a lot of our stuff is tied to Google and Gemini, I'm trying to get it to work more efficiently for us. I think Gemini is not as powerful as Claude or ChatGPT just yet in terms of its thinking, but it's coming along. But Claude seems to be the one I gravitate to the most. But Gemini, I'm putting in the effort for sure.
Perfect. So, we spoke about tools. Now let's talk about platforms. Now that
Mm.
AI answers, reduce discovery through traditional SERPs, how important are platforms like YouTube, LinkedIn, or, digital PR becoming for search visibility now?
Yeah, I mean, they're huge. YouTube was always a big player, especially because it's owned by Google. But now
Mhm.
it serves such a market in terms of these LLMs and the information it's providing. LinkedIn, Reddit, those are also really huge in terms of like what's being referenced in the LLM answers. It's starting to get quite interesting in that regard. But I think too, like right now, it feels like such a wild west of platforms and algorithms, and how do you make these, beneficial for your business and like help generate visibility revenue for your brand as well, that casting a wide net is still really useful. These algorithms haven't hit that like sophistication threshold yet. So having content on a variety of platforms, whether they are blogs and websites and all those kinds of things, podcasts, like any of this information that the LLMs can get their hands on is serving, a real positive impact right now.
Absolutely. Now, finally, 3 months into 2026, a lot of movement around AI and all these platforms, search visibility now changing. Where do you think, we're going to be at the end of 2026? 9 months still to go.
Oh my God. That's a big question. I don't know. The world is moving so fast right now. Like
Yeah.
if we just focus on like where the state of AI and the state of digital marketing, I think that there's going to be a reckoning in terms of the number of tools. I think people are going to start to identify, their preferred platforms and start to
Mhm.
get into those a lot more. The algorithms are going to become more sophisticated. These
Mhm.
businesses are going to have to start figuring out how they're going to make money at all of this. But I see a world where, more of this AI ability is going to be integrated in the back end more rather than it being these big platforms that people are going to go to and do their research and da da da. They'll just start being baked into the tools that they already use. I think that
Mhm.
that's kind of where a lot of this is going to go. Part of that is like, the agentic world and all of that, but also just I think working in the background. I don't know if people can sustain going to all these different platforms and, chat GPTs and the Claudes to like get an answer and then refine their answer. I think that it's going to start to get to a point where these just run on their own, in the background, and people don't think about them so much.
Perfect. Perfect, Jesse. This has been a brilliant conversation. I would really like to thank you for taking out time to do this with us. For our audience, if they want to reach out to you, how would they do that?
Yeah, LinkedIn's always great. I'm quite active on that platform. Our website, methodandmetric.com, we have a great resource section. Email is always effective too.
Lovely, Jesse. Thank you so much, man. Cheers.
Thank you for having me. This is a great conversation.